This week in the news, Highguard refunded, big win for Subnautica 2 devs, DLSS 5 is about to destroy games, Crimson Desert launched, and more on Old Man Rage's Had the News. Before we get the show on the road, hit the like and subscribe buttons if you enjoy the content. We're kicking off this week with what could be described as the biggest kick in the nuts for Highguard defenders. Apparently, Highguard players are getting automatic refunds. Probably the best thing that could have come out of that game. Someone on Reddit alleged that they got refunded for the game even though they enjoyed it. The reason why I say allegedly is cause the post is now deleted with the account gone. Probably the funniest part that I noticed about the Highguard subreddit is that it's now just GTA 6. You can't make this shit up. Now, while we're on the topic, I would like to point out that they went crazy and started talking about anything other than Highguard, with this meme being one of the funnier ones. Yeah, now that I've exited the recent crazed haze they left, I saw another post talking about this as well, where the dude was asking about an email they got from Sony for the refund. Top comment being, "Welcome to Refundguard." Oh my god. They lost the slop game and gained some semblance of humor. Is the world healing? So far, I've only found that Sony is the one doing the refund, while other platforms haven't done so. IGN also, basically found that only Sony is the one refunding players' money. But I wouldn't be surprised if Steam also starts refunding them in the near future. After all, Refundguard is no longer playable, and sure didn't live up to what it was promised. But that's by the by. And in other news, IO Interactive confirmed that it's cutting publishing ties with Mind's Eye, and the Hitman DLC is dead. Damn, Agent 47 must have gotten to the DLC first, I guess. Now, for some people, this isn't really news, since Insider Gaming made an article back at the end of January saying that this announcement will come soon, and yeah, they were right. Trying to find a source that isn't Blue Sky, obvious reasons. I mean, it's somehow a bigger cesspool than X. But anyways, I found this press release that basically confirms it. Barb will now have sole publishing responsibility going forward for Mind's Eye and any of their other games. Well, if they have the money to make them, that is. And this transition will happen over the coming weeks. It also mentioned that Barb has plans on working with partners on projects in the future, but it personally wouldn't hype them up. And in other news, Warner Bros. Montreal got hit with more staff cuts. What's with Montreal and getting so many layoffs this year? I swear I've talked about layoffs over there like, 3 times already? But anyways, multiple employees shared on LinkedIn that their roles were made redundant on the 13th of March, including the narrative design and production roles. GameIndustry.biz did try to contact Warner Bros. Montreal for comment, but it doesn't seem like they got anything, since the rest of the article is reciting what happened to Warner Bros. For the past few months. And now, for some good news. Subnautica 2 will finally enter early access in May this year. IGN revealed that the developers Unknown Worlds and publisher Kaplan have agreed the game is ready for early access for both Xbox and PC, but the date isn't provided yet. Steve Papotis also shared this message if you're curious. Now, the main reason why I want to cover this is because of the lawsuit. Strap in, folks. This gets stupid fast. Now, get this. The CEO of Kaplan asked ChatGPT how to void a $250 million contract, ignored his lawyers, and proceeded to lose in court in the most grand way possible. Let's put it like that. Who would have thought? ChatGPT didn't pass the bar exam, but still put on the suit and went to court. Now, probably it was the wrong suit, since this whole thing turned into a clown show. Who knows, next time ChatGPT might bring makeup with it and a big red nose. I want to quote something specific here. At ChatGPT's suggestion, he formed an internal task force dubbed Project X. The task force's mandate was to either negotiate a quote-unquote deal on the earnout or execute a quote takeover of unknown worlds. They looked to buy time. Kim sought ChatGPT's counsel on how to proceed if Kaplan failed to reach a deal with unknown worlds on the earnout. The AI chatbot prepared a quote response strategy to a quote no deal scenario. And if anybody's wondering who in the right mind is gonna listen to ChatGPT on legal matters, medical matters, really, anything important to you being alive, well, nobody in the right mind. Because as you can see, classic AI chatbot feeding his delusions does not result in a win situation. I mean, get this. One of the suggestions is to, and I quote, lock down Steam console publishing rights and access rights over code build pipeline through both legal and technical aspects. Yeah, let that sink in. Mind you, this is coming from the perspective of a layman, not a lawyer, not somebody who studies law. I can tell this is a bad idea right out of the gate. Some people are just born stupid, apparently. Now, the worst part, as the title of the article implied, and according to the court's records, is that he actually followed through with this instead of his lawyer's advice. Yeah, the moron had lawyers on payroll that told him, don't do this shit. He ignored them and proceeded to follow an AI that was most likely on shrooms. Now, he first posted this response to, quote, secure public support from fans and legal validations of our legitimacy. He even got ChatGPT to write it for him. Geek laziness right there, ladies and gents. And yeah, the irony is not lost on me. I'm too lazy to make thumbnails for these things. Anyways, the judge ordered Krafton's CEO to reinstate the fired developers, and Krafton told Kotaku that it was, quote, evaluating its options. Sure, buddy, sure. Can you ask ChatGPT to evaluate a new CEO while you're at it? Who knows, maybe ask Grok next time. It might handle the battlefield better than ChatGPT. You know, like this Redditor suggested. Jeez. Anyways, time for more delusions. Nvidia dropped DLSS 5, and now you too can make your great looking game into a mobile ad with just a press of a button. Look, it's even supported by Bethesda cause it just works. Also, Capcom's in on the support bandwagon. Hoda Studios, NetEase, NCSoft, S-Game, Tencent, Ubisoft, and Warner Bros. Games. Look, it's all big names here allegedly supporting it. Who knows, maybe we'll have Tim Two Sweeney also supporting this AI slop in the future. But now, let's get on to the meat and potatoes here. Get this, developers were not informed about DLSS 5. Shocking, I know. How can Nvidia do this? Let's be real here. If you're into the tech side of PC building and PCs, you'll know it's not something new. The GOAT that was EVGA in the graphics card world stopped making graphics cards in 2020 due to Nvidia not talking with their board partners. You know, the guys that make graphics cards like MSI, Asus, Gigabyte, for better or worse. Also, this gem came from one of Ubisoft's developers, where they stated, and I quote, "We found out at the same time as the public." Oh boy. I mean, I'm not surprised if the higher-ups did this and not told the developers. I mean, it's Ubislop after all, but let's be real here. I think Leather Jacket Man just forgot to send the memo. Now, Jensen Leather Jacket Wong also claims that gamers are completely wrong about DLSS 5. This came from a Q&A with Tom's Hardware at GTC 2026, where their editor-in-chief, Paul Alcorn, asked, since DLSS 5 was revealed yesterday, there's been pretty vocal response from some of the gaming community that the technology appears to make games appear worse, homogeneous, or show only Nvidia's view of how games should look. How do you feel about that criticism? Leather Jacket Man proceeded to completely lose his shit and said, well, first of all, they're completely wrong. The reason for that is because I have explained very carefully, DLSS 5 fuses controllability of the geometry and texture and everything about the game with generative AI. Tell me you're tone deaf without telling me you're tone deaf. AI Lover 69 over here, the head of Nvidia, thinks that people will fawn over generative AI when it objectively makes the games they show worse. He even claimed that you can fine-tune the generative AI and it doesn't change artistic control, but I doubt it, especially since Gamers Nexus decided to have a look at what Nvidia announced, and yes, in some cases, the characters were changed. Now, I suggest checking out their video as Steve goes into more details what's shown so far. Link will be in the sources. And just to hammer my point further, you even have a former Red Dead Redemption 2 developer saying, whoa, hold on, no, this isn't some lighting, dude. What the fuck? This is like a complete AI re-render. You're no longer looking at the game anymore. Does that make sense? This is scary. Now, this isn't the full statement, but you get the idea. If you're curious what he actually said, the timestamp is 2 minutes 14 seconds on the video. It's just to emphasize a point that the AI filter makes it so you are no longer looking at the same game or character. Bethesda also committed to further adjust the lighting and final effects on DLSS 5 for Starfield. Thought might be able to get us to buy 7 different versions of Skyrim, but DLSS 5 can't be the solution to Starfield's problems. IGN also emphasized the point that players don't want this by using this tweet. Now, personally, I would have used this instead. Now, while we're still on Bethesda, they at least working on a major update for the game. And thankfully, it isn't DLSS 5 quote-unquote optimization. It's supposed to bring things like better inventory management, weapon upgrades, alongside changes to the core systems, and a story DLC that has a new faction. Now, the funny part of all of this would be if it's somehow worse than the base game. Oh, and before I end the story, I forgot to mention something here. Diarrhea-laden slop supplier 5 ran on 2 5090s. One for the game itself, and one for the AI model. Now, for those not in the know, or somehow living under a rock, a single 5090 is $2,000. And that's for the base version, aka the one that Nvidia sells. For any partner card is gonna go for more than $2,000. So, yeah, you need to spend over $2,000 to be able to run half of this bullshit. Nvidia, what are you doing? Oh yeah, I know. AI slop. Disappointment. Oh, and considering we were talking about Ubisoft earlier, they're firing even more people. Oh, can't wait for the pity party journalists are gonna have for those people. Now, Ubisoft fired around 105 people from the Red Storm Entertainment, aka the studio that was responsible for creating series like Rainbow Six and Ghost Recon. In all irony, they're also not gonna be working on games anymore, but instead work on behind the scenes stuff like IT and some support on the Snowdrop engine. At this point, all I hope is the talented people that get fired from Ubisoft and the actual talented people in Ubisoft just leave, make their own studios, make their own games, and profit. Because obviously, Ubisoft can't do jack shit properly. And in other news, Crimson Desert is out alongside its reviews. Majority of the critics, shockingly might I add, like the game alongside the users on Steam. It also got the seal of approval from the head of communications at Palworld. But then, things went downhill. A few hours after the release, not only did it drop to mixed reviews, but it lost more than half of its player count due to performance issues and weird controls. Now, I get performance issues, somebody decided to shove in the nouveau there. But weird controls sounds like a piss poor excuse considering you can just rebind them, right? Oh, no, according to this Redditor, you can't even bind keys however you want. Alright, I concede at this point. Hell, even Eurogamer made an article talking about how ass the controls are. One ex-user even wrote, "Whoever designed the control scheme for Crimson Desert should seek employment with the devil." That's quite harsh, but apparently might be a valid criticism. All of that resulted in some people asking for refunds. The developers did respond to this type of criticism on X and wrote, "Think of it like riding a bike. It comes naturally after you learn it. Just takes a minute." Now, if you want to believe them, it's up to you. And on an unrelated note, the company's stocks did crash after the release of the game, sitting at 41.5 South Korean won. It's also worth noting that on Saturday, while writing this script, it was sitting at 177,860 players. So, it regained players alongside a performance patch. Hell, they even reported they sold 2 million copies. Good for them. But what I'm gonna commend them on, and this came in while recording the video, mind you, is that Pearl Abyss made an announcement about a patch to address the controls, especially if you're on keyboard and mouse. The only controls I would use for any game, unless it's a 2D platformer. Now, with that announcement, the positive reviews did jump a bit, but not by a whole lot, so at least they're listening to the player base. So we can say that this story so far ends on a positive note. And dear Lord, I hope for all the people who bought it and still haven't refunded the game to get better controls. At the very least, hope they enjoyed the game. And now, for the total opposite. Remember Voto? Yeah. Apparently, it was funded through the Italian grant system. Now, Smash JT alleged that the studio received 650,000 euros in government tax credits, with an additional 6,000 euros in grants from the Italy Ministry of Culture between 2021 and 2024. Now, why am I saying allegedly? Because I tried verifying the claims, but there are two big problems. One, I can't speak Italian to save my life. And two, the gov.it website that he provided as sources is basically out of commission as of recording. Meaning that there's no way for me to confirm this, so unless there's another source somewhere that I might have missed, I'd say take it with a grain of salt, considering this is not the first time the EU government or specific countries in the EU decided to fund shit. Now, what could be a dead giveaway that might have been true is that Kotaku tried to counter-argue that it was an absurd conspiracy and provided a PDF from the gov.it, specifically from the Ministry of Culture. Still, first problem applies. Can't read Italian for jack shit. So, if you can find anything on this and you understand it and speak, or better yet, are Italian, sound off in the comments below if you find something like that. Then again, I would encourage anybody to dig around and see what they can find on their own here. At the end of the day, it's not out of the range of possibility that this might have happened. Now, what I can confirm though is that the company's X account posted this gem claiming that they're open to feedback and improving their game. And then they made it so only certain accounts can reply, resulting in no replies at all. We went from Crimson Desert actively acknowledging the problems with their game to Voto saying, "Fuck you guys, we know better." Oh, brother. Talk about open feedback. Now, another thing that I also personally don't like is, and which Hirohei pointed out, is that they worded it like it was their first game, even though the studio is made of veterans. Let me guess, quote-unquote veterans from the position of junior developers, right? Now, none of the things I mentioned stops quote-unquote journalists from defending this game with a burning passion though. Like this article, for example, or even this one, which we covered a few episodes back. After all, the quote modern audience needs something to read and parrot over and over instead of providing actual support for the games that were made for them. And in other news, a survey shows that 9 out of 10 game workers disagree with Tim Two Sweeney, saying game stores should require generative AI disclosure. For some context, a while back, Tim Sweeney argued that disclosing generative AI tools makes no sense because AI will be involved in nearly all future products. And yes, that take is still up, and I don't think he has changed his mind since then. Now, this survey was conducted by GameIndustry.biz for its ongoing AI week, which includes several stories, all to do with AI and generative AI in game development. They received 862 responses from workers within the game industry, and one of the topics was the disclosure of generative AI tools. 88.4% believe that if a developer has used generative AI tools to make the game, it should be disclosed. Another one of the topics is, did you agree with Valve's approach of requiring developers to declare AI use only for content consumed by players rather than for efficiency tools? And interestingly, 48.7% said no, 32.1% said yes, and 19.2% said maybe, I don't know. Makes you think now, doesn't it? Now, the last interesting question was, how should platforms declare AI usage? With 51.9%, or the majority, as it's called, agreeing that the game creators should pick from specific lists, for example, if it was involved in QA and or store description. 28.4% said a simple yes, and 13.7% suggested an alternative to the current system. 3.1% said a percentage estimate, with the final 2.9% saying no, saying not at all. Man, Timmy Two must be crying while reading the survey results. Or just block GameIndustry.biz on X at this point. It's either or. And now for a bold strategy. Jeff Kaplan and his interesting strategy is in the spotlight this week. And that strategy boils down to him telling consumers to shut the fuck up instead of criticizing games they don't play. Now, here's the full quote. And after it finishes, I'll go over it.
I get a little upset and I voice my opinion because I so love this game and I'm bummed that my paladin is nerfed. Like, I can kind of understand that a little bit. I never understand being hostile about it or being rude about it, but I understand being upset and I understand voicing your opinion. But like, if a game comes out and you don't want to play it and you've never played it, shut the fuck up. No one cares. Like, we don't need to hear that you weren't into it. Like, what is with this? Oh my god, I'm so upset they decided to make this game that I have no interest in. Like, I'm not running to the internet every time there's like a TV show on well, I'm not watching any TV shows either, but like who cares about my opinion if I'm not going to play it? And if I've never played it, like, why does my opinion matter on that? So, if you play it, great. Like, you have an informed opinion, and good for you. But there needs to be a little bit more spread the love.
Okay, now, the whole Paladin thing. Sure, that one I can give him a pass since it's not a crazy take. Now, my problem is the second take about a game coming out. If a game comes out, I, as a consumer, am allowed to have an opinion. And I can do whatever I want with this opinion. I can say I don't like extraction shooters, and no one can tell me to shut the fuck up. This is doubly so for genres that I'm interested in. Oh, and his "why does my opinion matter" is so fucking sad. That is one way to tell me you don't have friends, Jeff. Now, sure, you can argue that an opinion has more or less value if the individual played the actual game in question and or did their research into it. But he never specified that in the clip. He literally just told everyone to shut up if they haven't touched the game. Absolute clown behavior from the former lead director of Overwatch. You know, the game that has more Rule 34 arts than peak players on Steam. Yeah, and I also include videos in that section. Overall, his statement just promotes toxic positivity, and that is not a good thing in this industry. I mean, it's not a good thing in general. And last time something like that happened, Sony started mass refunding people's purchases without an announcement or asking them if they wanted a refund. You know, the story that we started with this week. Almost as if hindsight is 2020 here. And in other news, Pokemon Go players were bamboozled and used to train AI delivery robots. Who would have thought staying inside and not touching grass won somehow? Who would have thought? Anyways, on the 10th of March, Niantic Spatial partnered with Coco Robotics, a company that makes short-distance delivery robots for food and groceries. The reason why Pokemon Go was used is, get this, because the game captured more than 30 billion images, and those were used to train the VPS model. Eurogamer also pointed out that Niantic's terms and conditions do state that images are banked as mapping data, and likewise the specific photo scanning process is opt-in only in the game. Users must voluntarily agree to upload their scans directly to Niantic's, basically proving the point that there is no such thing as a free-to-play game. You're still paying with something. And in this case, it's your geolocation. And to wrap the week up, two senior Xbox leads exit Microslop. Those two are Lori Wright and Haiyan Zhang, who both served the company for 10 plus years. They both posted on LinkedIn about their leaving, with Wright thanking her colleagues, partners, and friends who shaped her journey, and Zhang leaving for Netflix Gaming. Oh yeah, Netflix had a gaming team. Now, I generally thought it was called a gaming team because people there were bitching about cloud gaming non-stop and were never able to make a good game, considering the only game they published is Oxenfree 2 and nothing else. Now, it's also worth noting that The Verge's Tom Warren announced Zhang's departure on his X profile, which got her attention, and she wrote, "It's just a new job, dude." Apparently people do that. Smiley face. With Tom Warren replying with, "Haha, I always track veterans leaving. Good luck at Netflix." Again, with a smiley face. She also publicly stated to not bundle her with conspiracy theories and reiterated that she had an amazing experience at Microslop. Yeah, we all know what's gonna happen. This is the internet, and we all know that there will be people who put a tinfoil hat and go ham. And in some cases, they get validated. And on that note, that's all for this week. hit the like and subscribe buttons if you enjoy the content, and I'll see you next time.